Hi, my name is Oleg Abdurashitov, and I'm head of CEO office. Basically, I lead the team that looks after Eugene's schedule and makes sure that he meets with the right people and at the right time. Because those people are coming from a variety of organizations like academia, public institutions, government agencies, and law enforcement, we also happen to run Kaspersky public affairs initiatives, including Kaspersky Global Transparency Initiative. The three key reasons for businesses to engage public institutions are to inform them about certain things that are of importance to the business, to engage them as customers, as partners for projects of particular importance, and then to influence them and their decisions. If you think of the governance, you can think of it as a technology that works on two layers, like software layer of laws and regulations and hardware layer of agencies and institutions that actually implement those laws. But because all those layers consist of people, it is important that the company is in contact with these personalities and informs them on what is important. We have a range of day-to-day partnership with the key international law enforcement agencies like Interpol and Europol. And to give an example, we are founding members of one of the largest public-private initiatives in cyberspace called No More Ransom. And No More Ransom is an initiative that is run by a variety of institutions, including Europol and Dutch police, who are, with Kaspersky, the founders of this project. Today, NMR is one of the biggest projects helping people to restore access to files they lost to some sorts of ransomware. And to date, Europol estimates that this project saved people $600 million in the ransom that they didn't pay to the attackers. And that is an example of a day-to-day work of the company with the law enforcement agency. Another example would be our strategic partnership with Interpol. And for instance, we were among the first people to enter into the new Interpol premises in Singapore at the Interpol Global Complex for Innovations. And since then, we work closely with the Interpol Cyber Fusion Center and other cybersecurity teams to enhance the capacities of the local law enforcement agencies in dealing with cybercrime, in helping the investigations, and in advising on technology aspects of cybercrime investigations and enforcement. Just like with any other partners, before you enter into a relation with a particular agency, you need to answer a set of questions like, why are we doing that? What is the value that we bring to this partnership, and what is the value that this partnership brings to us? And if you know the answers to these questions, then the partnership will probably work so much better than it would without them. What is important to note is that one of the biggest mistakes that people make engaging government institutions is that they don't understand that to work, you need to plan long-term engagement. You can't achieve things over a week or over a lunch. It takes years and years of building relations and earning trust with these people before you can actually achieve your goals and before you are seen as an equal partner to them. Trust is a very special currency. It is very hard to earn it, and it burns momentarily. So that's why a lot of the work that we do in the government sector is actually aimed at building that level of trust that allows us to work in the markets, that allows us to engage certain groups of customers like critical infrastructures or public sector agencies or other public institutions. Because again, in many countries, there are certain limitations to whom you can and cannot work with. And without building that level of trust, your business would probably never be able to get there. A lot of the things that we do is based on research. We constantly monitor the news around certain regulatory developments or about certain institutions that are playing a role in these regulatory developments. And once we identify a particular institution that we would be eager to work with, we seek ways that would allow us this dialogue. Institutionalized, legal, events, other platforms. In the recent months since the coronavirus started, we actually found that a lot of the government sector officials are pretty willing to attend online conferences. And our European team, for instance, had dozens of virtual meetings with the officials whom they were never able to meet before the coronavirus. So it is important that you do your homework, you do your research to understand what institution that person represents, what are their interests, what are their policies, and what is that you can make for them, what is that value that you can bring to the conversation. Well, if you ask Eugene Kaspersky what is the criteria for the success of law enforcement cooperation, his answer is very simple. His question is very simple, in fact. He asks you, how many cybercriminals have you caught? And unfortunately, this is not always as straightforward as that, although I can tell you that we've been engaged in a certain investigations that help to sort of find and arrest cyber criminals. Now, to give you an example, I got a call once I got a call from an Indian police agency saying, "Hi Oleg, we have seen that one of your researchers a few years back recorded a video of a scam attempt. Someone was trying to scam him. And we actually found these people. We want to put them on trial. But because the juries have no idea about cybersecurity, can you share that video and can we ask the expert to explain that to the jury?" And that was the moment where our work really helped to put an end to a large cybercriminal operation that was targeting customers from across the globe. I spent 4 years in Asia, and I can tell that you sort of learn to understand these little things, how you should present yourself and how you should introduce yourself and how you actually do the business with people. One of the first things that I've learned is that in Asia, you actually hand over your business card with 2 hands like this. It would be impolite if I had done it otherwise. And you nod in some instances to people like with a little bow. So, but overall, we are truly living in a very globalized world. And if you think of it, Asia is a very, very large part and very integrated part of that global economy. You have people speaking the same language in most of the countries. You have people having the same interest. You have people having the same technologies. And you actually have people having the same problems. So as long as you know how to address those problems, you are good. But to give a peculiar example, at one of the meetings between Eugene Kaspersky and one of the very, very senior Southeast Asian ministers, the first question that the minister asked to Eugene was, "Hi Eugene, what is your Chinese horoscope sign?" And we were really lucky that Eugene actually knows that he is a snake. And then the minister said, "Oh, and I'm a tiger, and you know, tiger and snake actually do not interact that well to each other." And then they spent some time discussing how the signs work. And then Eugene told about the signs of his kids. And then the minister told about the signs of his wife. And then we had a proper conversation. But it took some time to build that trust between those 2 people before they were able to sort of discuss the business matters. Since you have a very clear agenda, you are not actually that required to understand. Although that can sort of put you into a position where you don't understand why you're talking to that person, and you understand it in the middle of the conversation. So that's why I always say that it is important for people to do their homework, to do their research before engaging anyone. But to give you an example of the sort of distance between the people and the government. Well, I lived in Singapore, and Singapore has a very, very specific political system. And once I think I was just back from the office and I was about to make myself a cup of nice tea when someone knocked my door. And I live in a pretty regular Singapore apartment, and I opened the door and I understand that in front of me stands the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Singapore, Mr. Vivian Balakrishnan. And he asked me, "Hello, how are you?" And I'm like, "Hello, how are you? And what the hell are you doing here?" And apparently, Minister Balakrishnan represents the district that I live in. And once in a while, he comes to his community, meets people, asks them questions, and tries to address their grievances or their problems or their issues. And we had a nice 2-minute conversation. He asked me, what am I doing in Singapore? I told him about cybersecurity. He stressed that it's a very, very important part of the industrial development of Singapore. And we waved each other goodbye. But again, you probably will not be able to even imagine that situation in many other countries, like Northern Russia. Well, not in Singapore, because Singapore is a pretty English-speaking country. But it's not about being lost in translation. It's actually about being lost without it. One of my first business trips in Asia was a fairly long business trip to China, where I have spent 3 weeks, pretty much in a very, very small Chinese town of 5 million people called Jiaxing. And China is not known for their English language skills, obviously, because it's a huge market on its own and people do not actually need to learn of it that much. But it actually complicated a lot of things for me because I just started to learn Chinese at the time, and my Chinese language skills allowed me to order noodles. And that was pretty much it. So in those 3 weeks, I tried all sorts of Chinese noodles because that was the only thing that I was able to order at the restaurant. Don't shy away from the street food. That's number one. Asia is probably the best place in the world where you can try all sorts of street foods safely. And even if the place looks shabby, if you see people around it, it's a good sign that the food is fantastic. Then the other advice I would say is to be really open-minded and to be eager to learn new things and to be able not to jump to conclusions too fast. Because Asia takes time, and in Asia you need to be able to sort of attune your inner radar to these vibrations that a culture sends to you, that people send to you, and a lot of the things that you do in Asia are very sort of intuitive. So trusting your intuition would probably be another good advice for a first-time Asia newcomer. I wouldn't say that I've encountered people saying yes and meaning no, and that's what is always sometimes implied when you speak of, the cultural differences. But getting to yes is actually a very different journey in every particular culture. And in certain culture, you need to have a range of yeses before you reach to that one final yes that you need to achieve. And in other culture, yes allows you to do things on your own. In other culture, yes means, well, let's see. So I think, again, it's not particularly Asian thing. Getting to yes is a job, and people need to be planning for it. My favorite childhood books have, I think, a very sort of traditional taste. I like Lord of the Rings, I like Treasure Island, and I like Cat's Cradle. And then when I thought about this, I realized that all these books have something in common. These are the stories about people going on a journey to a new unknown lands, meeting new and very special people, and knowing something new about themselves. And that is something that I think I always wanted for myself in my life. And I'm actually very lucky to have a job at Kaspersky that pretty much does just that. There's always something else to discover, there's always something else to find out, there's always someone else whom you can learn from.